Mr. Giggles, you understand why you are here today, don't you? If you're ever in a position where someone asks you this question, it probably means things are not going all that well, and the questioner is likely 25 years younger than you. How you frame your answer is kind of a no-win scenario. Nothing is really going to improve your situation. I suffer from paranoid delusions. Can you remember when they first began? I think it began years ago. I was always uncertain about the motivation of others. Was someone friendly because they wanted to be friends, or did they want something else? Can you give me an example? Take you, for instance. Are you here because of me, or just for a paycheck? That remark makes you sound a little uncertain. I don't even know your name. My name is Molly Starstruck. I'm here to interview you because, well, full disclosure, your case interests me. It's not every day I get to speak to anyone at the Billingsworth. As a matter of fact, you're the first person. So you're a reporter? Not exactly. There was an opening here for a counselor, and I applied for it and was accepted. But we need not stick to a strict clinical relationship, especially if it rouses your suspicions about me. I am open to expanding the parameters if that would help. Mr. Wiggles' mind filled in the blanks. Okay, we can probably find some common ground. You ask your questions, I get to ask my questions. Do I also get a pen and a pad? Molly reached into the desk drawer and found an extra pen and notebook, which she handed over to Mr. Wiggle. What are you hoping to obtain with your line of questioning? Oh, just to find out if we're kindred spirits. I will bounce ideas off you to see for myself if I'm really paranoid, or if we are more alike than you think. What's the old saying? Let the games begin. You want to start? What is your first question? Mr. Wiggle smiled, tapped his pen on the notepad. Are you nervous meeting me? Molly drew a breath. Do you think I'm nervous? Never answer a question with a question. It's okay to admit if you're a little nervous. Might even be considered a normal response. Molly, being quite new to the world of psychiatric counseling, didn't exactly know what to say. You would have to be a fool not to have your guard up, she told herself. Okay, maybe a little. All right, that didn't hurt, did it? It only proves you're human. You see, a little nervousness can be a very helpful trait to develop. It can keep you out of a lot of trouble. Molly thought about that remark after her session ended. My objective, she told herself, is to keep accurate notes, to give the panel who will decide his fate the ammunition to keep him locked up or let him out. It was only some time later when it occurred to her that he also had an objective, and she wondered what that might be. Mr. Wiggles began to think that for the first time in months he had made a little progress. He felt good about the meeting with Molly, especially at the terms they had laid down. He took out his new notebook and pen and began to sketch out the architecture of the building as best as he could remember. From the nightstand he reached for his water glass, and placing it to his ear, listening through it at the wall to see if he could hear anything. He thought he could hear muffled voices. His eyes went upward at the removable ceiling tiles. Looking back at his notebook, he thought of his next question for Molly. It had to be one that did not sound like trickery, a question designed not to get one's guard up. Do you look both ways before crossing the street? He smiled to himself. A good question, he thought, even a profitable one. Molly Starstruck finished up reading an article on the geometry of an egg. The question she was asking herself was why? What was so compelling about the ovoid shape? It was on her own time, after all. Her next session wasn't to be for another 3 days. In the article, the association between the shape of an egg and sacred geometry had caught her attention. She needed a little time to digest the information, and so she went for a walk and ended up in front of Old Joe's Cafe. You never know what you're going to find out in here, she told herself. Old Joe looked up from his racing form from behind the counter. Hey, Molly, good to see ya. Let me think. Coffee, white, no sugar, right? Sounds good. You're catching on. What's new in your neck of the wood? What drew you out on a night like tonight? Oh, nothing special. Just a part of this research group and need to do a little abstract thinking. Abstract thinking, eh? I'm pretty good at that. Why, just look around you. This whole place is an exercise in abstract thinking. So what's on your mind? Maybe I can help. It's gotta beat washing cups. Sure, you want to know? Lay it on me. There's not much I haven't heard in here. Sacred geometry. What do you know about sacred geometry and its relationship with the ovoid shape? Believe it or not, there's a guy that comes in here once in a while. Professor Brownie Motion. He once demonstrated how our spiral galaxy could be recreated in a cup of coffee with just a little cream and the use of a stir stick. He went on to talk about dust particles and water molecules. Interesting fellow. Sounds like it. I guess for my purposes, if you picture the egg like a three-dimensional object and then reduce it to a vapor, view it as steam rising from this coffee. Then have the vapor move in a swirl pattern, tracing an egg shape from the narrow bottom to a wide center, to once again a narrow top. You could unite the ovoid and the swirl. This is important, inasmuch as the swirl is recognized as one of the fundamental shapes in sacred geometry. See what I mean? People come in here looking for different solutions, and most times those solutions can be found somewhere in a cup of coffee.